me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Let's go. I'm about to go off like a weapon. Fuel to the top, gotta feel the vengeance. In my thoughts,
Welcome back, everybody. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell, and then let me know in the comments who your answer would be. Today we're going to be going over who do you think would have a bigger 2023 season, Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle? And we're going to be going over the actual examples, the weaknesses, the strengths of each one of those guys, and who I think is going to have a bigger 2023. Now, 2022, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill just bursted onto the scene together and just broke so many records, and there's a lot of mystery behind who is going to, or actually what we are going to do with this offense this off season, because we could completely shatter records, or some people have us taking a step back, which I think with the additions that we made in this offseason, our offense is not taking a step back. It's going to take a step forward this coming season. I know people are worried about the offensive line, but that is why we have fast receivers, because we don't need to have a bunch of time. Tua breaks things down very quickly, and he will be on track to, shatter the pace that he was on last season. So first we're going to go over Jalen Waddle. And Jalen Waddle, when he was a rookie, a lot of his passes, he broke the records for having 100 receptions that year for a rookie, which is pretty incredible. And Tua was just getting it to him, left and right. I mean, he had no other receivers to throw the ball to, so Jalen Waddle was basically his guy and burst on the scene. But a lot of his plays were short routes, slants, screens. There weren't really a lot of, there were every once in a while, against the Titans and the Ravens, where he caught a deep bomb, a deep go route. But to be honest, most of the time Jalen Waddle isn't used for deep go routes. He most of the time is intermediate, slant, 15-yard ins, things like that. So Jalen's strong suit is actually running those intermediate routes, because he is very good at stopping and cutting. I think, honestly, I would put him at top 3 in the league at stopping and cutting. I mean, if you watch the tape on Sauce Gardner when, obviously Tua wasn't playing last year, but if you watch the tape, honestly, Sauce, he was holding Tyreek a lot, which, they'll let him get away with that. It is what it is. But when he was covering Jalen Waddle, even though Jalen didn't get a lot of the passes that day, and the majority of the passes went to Tyreek, you really have to look at the replays, and Jalen Waddle was cooking Sauce Gardner. Jalen Waddle's route running is probably the best in this league, or if not top 3. And what he is special at is running those intermediate routes, because people can't keep up with him when he breaks out of his cut. And what is key with that is that, Tyreek Hill is used for a lot of the deeper routes, which we'll get into that later. But honestly, Jalen Waddle gets open over the middle of the field very consistently throughout each game. And I would honestly say Jalen Waddle's strong suit, actually, I believe he has better elusiveness than Tyreek Hill. I like Tyreek Hill, and he can cut and go, and he's very, very fast. And he's probably faster than Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle can really just shake you out of your shoes. So when Jalen Waddle gets the ball, we'll notice a lot of the time that, it also has to do with the difference of people around him. But when Jalen Waddle gets the ball, there's a lot of plays where he just shakes somebody down the field and just keeps going, where it's hard to tackle him. So the pros with Jalen Waddle is going to be that he will shake you out of your shoes once he gets the ball. I mean, that is one of his key skill traits, that he's very good at having missed tackles. We've seen it a lot. We saw in the Packers game, even when he fumbled the ball in the Vikings, which, we'll get into that, but still was shaking people down the field and going for 60 yards just because people couldn't tackle him. Now, the weaknesses with Jalen Waddle, which I think some of these will get fixed, but the drops. There were a lot of drops by Jalen Waddle. Some of them were to his fault, where he was just kind of overthrowing him, and that was towards the end of the year when it was kind of that struggle phase of those 2 to 3 games. But there were a lot of drops and some key mistakes by Jalen Waddle, like the fumble against the Vikings, and a lot of drops and late in the midfield where he would just jump up and somehow just would not come down with the ball. Which they are tough catches, but if you want to be an X Factor, we'll go Madden-wise, X Factor superstar, you need to be able to make those catches. And another one of the weaknesses with a Jalen Waddle is that sometimes he was playing pretty injured because he is not the biggest guy. So when these bigger guys do fall on top of him, sometimes he does injure himself, which, to be honest, the guy is very durable. He hasn't really missed any games, but the thing is sometimes he was playing on like a hurt hamstring, and there are certain situations like that. But the weaknesses for Jalen Waddle have to be that the drop passes. I think he's going to clean that up this year, but there were a lot of drop passes by Jalen Waddle, some wide open where he would just drop them, and there were some key drops that could have gotten to his momentum going a little bit more. Like in the Houston game or in some of the other games that we can go over, but. That's one of the weaknesses with Jalen Waddle is sometimes he just doesn't look the ball in because he's trying to make a move so quick, and sometimes he just needs to do that, which he did it more in his rookie season, which is, very key. Like Jalen Waddle didn't really drop the ball in his rookie season, so I think he can get back to that, and I really do think that his pros really are just incredible, and Jalen Waddle can be an incredible. Like, we have to remember that this is his third year in the league. He's playing like a superstar wide receiver, and it's only his third year. So Jalen Waddle has a lot that he's going to improve on this year, and I think he's going to be amazing. So we'll go into Tyreek Hill. Now, the way that they use Tyreek Hill is obviously everyone knows the name, everyone knows the game, and Tyreek Hill is he's the man. You know what I'm saying? So with Tyreek Hill, you run a lot of bombs. You're going to run a lot of deep routes. You're going to run a lot of deep in the field routes. You're going to move him around. And the pros to Tyreek Hill is he's going to outrun everybody, right? I mean, that's just basically what Tyreek Hill does. He'll outrun every single person. And again, there were some key drops with Tyreek Hill, but he is pretty sure-handed most of the time. Like, Tyreek Hill doesn't really drop the ball. So one of the pros with Tyreek Hill is, again, he's not going to drop the ball, and he's faster than everybody on the field. Tyreek Hill is a once-in-a-lifetime player. I believe he came out of the third or fourth round, and he was not supposed to be anything more than a kick returner, but the just pure heart and determination by this guy makes him so special as a wide receiver. I mean, it's something that we all probably haven't seen before. It's like a Chris Johnson effect, but I honestly think even better, because the longevity that Tyreek Hill is going to have and has had in this league is pretty incredible. Like, he really has come on and he has just not let those reins go, where he is the guy. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL. There are a lot of other players that you can go up against, but I think just the versatility of what Tyreek Hill can do is just key to unlocking a lot of the things on this offense, and it just makes the offense so much better when he's on the field, because again, faster than everybody else on the field, and you move him around. And another thing that obviously is going to be one of the more weaknesses on him, and it's not necessarily his fault, is that there are a lot of eyes on Tyreek Hill. They are accounting for him on every play. Now, he still makes incredible catches, and he gets a whole bunch of stuff, whole bunch of yards, whole bunch of everything, but again, a lot of eyes are on Tyreek Hill. You probably have two people covering him most games because you just don't want him going for that big play, which he still does, it just makes him so incredible. But, again, as a player on the team that would be having the most players on him, they are trying to stop him every game. And that, not necessarily is a weakness on him, but it's what you have to take into consideration, is that most teams are going to try and stop Tyreek Hill. So they're going to put 2, sometimes 3 people on him, which is why Mike McDaniel's offense works so well, is because sometimes they just use Tyreek Hill as a distraction. And that is one of the key things with Tyreek, is that you use him as a distraction to move defenses. And another thing with Tua is that I think this year, one of the other weaknesses, now again, the weaknesses aren't due to Tyreek, it's just things around him. So I think last year, Tua tried to force the ball into Tyreek Hill a lot. And there were certain plays that if he just didn't, there were other guys much more open than Tyreek Hill was. And I think because they were trying to get him to this 2,000-yard mark, really had no business fitting the ball into Tyreek Hill. So again, that's going to be one of the things that I think they're going to fix, which might affect the receptions that Tyreek Hill will have, because we're going to run the ball more. We're going to have Tua go through progressions a lot more. And I think, with that comes with a lot of less forcing to Tyreek Hill, which, obviously will produce less receptions. He still is going to have an amazing year, and I know that for a fact. But I don't know if we're going to necessarily have the receptions as much so as we did last year, because like I said, sometimes we were just trying to get it into him for no apparent reason. So both these guys are going to be elite this next year. They're both going to be elite. They're both going to have over 1,000 yards. But my actual answer to who is going to have a better 2023 might surprise you. And I'm going to say it's Jalen Waddle. And the reason I say that is because, again, with Jalen Waddle, there were probably like 6 or 7 passes that were going to go for 20 to 40 yards that Jalen Waddle dropped last year. And honestly, in the red zone, Jalen Waddle is much more sought out for Tua than Tyreek Hill is. If you really watch it, Jalen Waddle had much more touchdowns than Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill dropped some and Jalen Waddle dropped some, but Tua looks to Jalen Waddle in the red zone a lot, and Tua is very good in the red zone. He doesn't really force it into Tyreek Hill. And the key here is that Tyreek Hill always has 2 people watching him. Tyreek Hill is always going to have 2 players that are trying to stay with him. Jalen Waddle is going to be the intermediate route that, honestly, Jalen Waddle, a lot of his plays, and I think even more so this year because we have more key additions that can spread the field, Jalen Waddle is going to feast on the middle of the field. And once you get the ball in his hands, he's just going to be gone. And I really do feel like Jalen Waddle is going to have so much yards after catch this year. Tyreek Hill, don't get me wrong, Tyreek Hill is going to have an amazing year. He's going to have a bunch of yards after catch, and it's probably going to be very close. But Jalen Waddle, I think, is just going to feast this year. I think this is going to be his year. He's going to prove that he's not a number 2. He's a number 1 alongside another number 1. And I really do think that Tua does look to Jalen Waddle a lot more. I think he tries to force it to Tyreek Hill, but I think Tua, his safety net is his buddy, Jalen Waddle. It's always been that way, and it will be for the rest of Tua's career, as Jalen Waddle is the guy that he looks to. And Jalen Waddle has great games when Tua's in. And Tua playing the whole entire season, Jalen Waddle will do significantly better, because what you can see is when Tua was in, Jalen Waddle's numbers were awesome. And when Tua was out, Jalen Waddle sometimes had 0 catches, which is not necessarily his fault. It's just that the quarterbacks we had stunk, and they just didn't look his way. They just kept, the plays were designed to first look at Tyreek Hill, and they usually would just never look to their second read. When they did, Jalen Waddle made huge plays. And that's why I think this year, the yards after catch for Jalen Waddle is just going to put him over the edge. And he's probably going to have a better 2023 than Tyreek Hill. But let me know what you think about that opinion. Let me know if you think it's going to be Tyreek Hill and why. Comment down below and tell me why you would think the answer is opposite, or if you agree with me. But as always, hope you have a great rest of your day. Fins up. Peace.